The story we're tracking, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs on suicide watch at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center after two judges denied his request for bail. This as a grand jury is expected to hear new testimony from sex workers very soon.
And that's what I think this is about. And I'm just reading from some of these stories because I think it's important to point this out. When you highlight and you talk about some of the charges that have been leveled against him, and you see some of the stuff that's being said about him. Look at this right here. Former Danity Kane singer Aubrey O'Day writes, "I never thought I would see this day," she told TMZ. "We all buried this inside of us in order to be able to keep going. And not just me, but victims you don't even know yet. We're all processing what that type of vindication can actually feel like now. Every conversation I've had with victims last night has been beyond moving on all levels." That was Aubrey O'Day. You know 50 Cent was going to make sure his voice was heard. Clowning P. Diddy. Taunting him, basically, because he's long taunted P. Diddy for years.
You say his fame makes him a target.
Yes, in my humble estimation, his life, his safety is in jeopardy in any correctional lockup right now. If it is true, as reported, that he is housed in the special housing unit, it's important to note that the special housing unit is a lockdown, 24-hour lockdown unit. The MDC Brooklyn is a high-rise. The vast majority of the floors are general population floors. But the special housing unit is a 24-hour lockdown facility. So this is for Mr. Combs' protection. His incredible worldwide celebrity combined with the allegations, the charges now, and indictment, of course, of acts of violence against women make him a very attractive target.
All right.
Obviously, they need to safeguard him.
Speculations are swirling that Diddy might meet the same fate as Jeffrey Epstein. After being locked up in Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, notorious for horrific conditions and inmate deaths, people are drawing parallels between Diddy's case and Epstein's mysterious end.
Sean Diddy Combs is locked up in a federal jail that has been plagued by harsh conditions and violence. The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn has seen multiple deaths in recent years. An inmate was stabbed to death in July, and several others have died by suicide. It's these reasons, among others, that Combs' lawyers are fighting to get him out of there. They want him released on bail rather than being kept in jail while he awaits trial on sex trafficking charges. Combs is just the latest high-profile defendant to be locked up at MDC Brooklyn. Before him, there were R. Kelly, Elaine Maxwell, and crypto scammer Sam Bankman-Fried. Maxwell complained about her treatment at the facility, which included round-the-clock checks in the wake of her associate Jeffrey Epstein's jail suicide. A few years ago, a week-long power outage in the dead of winter left detainees in drab, cold conditions. Judges have also raised alarms. They've pressed the Bureau of Prisons for status updates and implored the agency to fix things. One judge even refused to send some defendants to the jail. For now, Combs is one of about 1,200 people locked up at MDC Brooklyn. He's the highest profile detainee at a place that's been described as hell on earth.
The shocking trafficking and abuse allegations against Diddy, including those infamous parties, are only adding fuel to the speculation. Fans are speculating about whether Diddy could be Epsteined before the full truth comes to light.
Multiple outlets would report that Diddy was being held in a Brooklyn detention center away from the general population and on suicide watch, which feeds into the predictions from Griffin and Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal. Despite that, Diddy's lawyer would make a public statement declaring that his client is strong, healthy, and focused on his defense. Today we have our very own comedy hype analysts, Steve Brown and Marvin Hunter, on the show to talk all about it. But first, let's take a look at this clip.
Here is my prediction. I predicted that he was going to jail before they took him. I'd be surprised if he lived past the end of September, because he is a dead man walking. Every record label, motherfucking executive, and the motherfuckers in Black Rock, this nigga ain't gonna make it. And it's gonna be the end of the story, because we are waiting on the other names involved. You ain't gonna hear them. And now they gonna auction off all his mansions because the feds now own all of his record label and all that shit. RICO Act, they took all this shit.
The speculations heated up after the revelation that Diddy has been placed on suicide watch at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC, as a preventative measure. After being denied bail twice, Diddy is reportedly in a state of shock, and his mental condition is currently unclear.
And we have the latest on Sean Diddy Combs' investigation as the hip-hop star fights racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and prostitution charges. Well, investigators now working to determine who his co-conspirators were and whether they should be charged as well. TMZ is also reporting Diddy was placed on suicide watch at the detention center that he's being held at in New York. But his lawyer is saying he's not suicidal. This is just routine for high-profile inmates. Just this week, prosecutors say they served Combs' head of security with a search warrant for his electronic devices.
You can rest assured that the feds have already talked to the people who worked for Combs, and all of those people have already probably given statements.
The 54-year-old has pleaded not guilty to charges that he led a criminal conspiracy that abused women. The indictment alleges some of Combs' employees helped set up freak-offs in which women were forced into sexual acts with male prostitutes. Diddy remains isolated from the general population behind bars.
Deal, who worked closely with Diddy for years, hinted that the combination of the nature of Diddy's alleged crimes, along with the brutal environment of prison, could lead to a dangerous situation. He even speculated that Diddy might end his own life, given the mounting pressure and parallels to Epstein's death while in custody.
A certain individual to prepare itself to do a lot of years in jail. From the lifestyle that he had, I'm not saying that he can't. I just don't see him able to do time behind bars. Maybe if he be in a camp type situation, that's a possibility. But based on the lifestyle and what he's done and what he's accomplished, if he had to go behind those bars for a lot of years, I think that he may commit suicide. He'd do an Epstein.
Why do you think he didn't pull a Russell Simmons and leave the country?
They was watching him, bruh. They was watching him.
There's growing speculation that Diddy might not survive his time in jail, with comparisons being made to Jeffrey Epstein. The conditions at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, where Diddy is being held, are notoriously dangerous.
Good evening, everybody. I'm having deja vu. It was just over 5 years ago. The most common question I was getting asked was, what's going to happen to Epstein now that he's been arrested? And we know how that turned out. Now the most common question I'm getting asked is, will Diddy survive incarceration, or will he be Epsteined? And we are seeing some parallels. So the basics are, he's in there on a $50 million bond bail. It is a jail that the Epstein jail was closed down and inmates were moved, including Ghislaine Maxwell ended up, and R. Kelly ended up in this same jail in Brooklyn because the Epstein jail was closed down. We're at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, was where Epstein, he got suicided on August the 10th, 2019. Can you believe it has been that long? So in this video, we're going to look at some basics. I'm going to go over chapter 1 of Who Killed Epstein, Prince Andrew or Bill Clinton, my book, because the details in there, you will see all of the parallels with Diddy's case. But the basics are, life is cheap in prison. There are people in prison who will kill you for a $50 wrap of heroin.
Sean Diddy Combs back in court to request bail, complains of horrific New York City jail conditions. My opinion, this dude, is he for real requesting bail? This is the same dude who conveniently skipped town when the authorities were raiding his houses, talking about, oh, I didn't know y'all were looking for me, fellas. Well, now you know, so could you come back in town? Because we got some questions for you. But I tell you what, after my vacation, I'll be right in to answer all your questions. Like, does he think the judge is stupid? If he gets bailed, that guy is gone forever, off to some country with no extradition treaty, living a lube-room-having lifestyle because he's got the money and apparently a lot of lube for some reason. No, buddy. You stay right there. You're right where you belong. But it's so uncomfortable. Like there's no oceanfront view, no state-of-the-art gym. They got me sleeping on a twin mattress. It's not even a memory foam mattress. It's so uncomfortable. Yo, it's jail. It's not supposed to be comfortable. Like, why do these rich people think, oh, I'm going to be living a life in jail? No, my friend. Suck it up. Actually, you know what? Don't suck up anything in jail. Don't do that. And that's such a thing. Like, don't let me impose my thinking on you. You live your lifestyle. You live your truth. Now, what if after years of being in jail, Diddy comes out of prison, he's more open. And, like, maybe his friends are like, how was it, Diddy? And he's like, oh, it was great. Really? Oh, yeah, bro. I got my pushed in, bro. Let me see who catches that movie reference.
There are concerns that Diddy could face threats from fellow inmates due to the nature of his alleged crimes, which include trafficking and misconduct. In prisons, individuals convicted or accused of crimes involving exploitation, especially of women or minors, often face hostility from other inmates.
And one of the rules is if anyone comes in with a sex offense or a crime against a woman or a child, right away it's KOS, kill on sight, or at least they're going to get a hell of a beatdown. And I've written extensively and talked extensively about the prison stories I saw, sex offenders trying to go undercover in general population, and the horrendous, horrific things that happened to them. They had it coming. I'm not saying they didn't deserve it, but it was some of the most graphic, gruesome violence I ever personally heard or saw the end results out, people getting carried out. One guy, he was on a stretcher, looked dead, and there wasn't just blood coming out of him, there was yellow stuff coming out of his head, like brain fluid or something coming out of his head. There was another one who had convictions of that nature.
Given the high-profile nature of Diddy's case and the disturbing details of the allegations, his safety might be at greater risk inside the dangerous and overcrowded Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center.
And racketeering conspiracy charges following a months-long investigation. He appeared before a federal judge in New York on Tuesday, pleading not guilty and will remain behind bars.
The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct.
Prosecutors claim the rapper ran a criminal enterprise through his business empire, where he and his associates engaged in sex trafficking and forced labor. He's also accused of verbally and physically assaulting victims and using assistants and household staff to hide his crimes.
As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines.
Ice Cube has indeed spoken out about the legal troubles surrounding Sean Combs. He suggested that Diddy might be the target of a larger conspiracy orchestrated by powerful individuals. In interviews, including one on the PBD podcast, Ice Cube expressed his belief that Diddy is being targeted by powerful individuals, hinting at a larger conspiracy against him.
Surprised. How could you be surprised with anything that happens in hip hop? You know, hip hop is the Wild West. So you're gonna have the good, you're gonna have the bad, you're gonna have the ugly.
You think he's being targeted, or some of the stuff he's got, there's credibility on what they're coming after him with the tapes and the feds and raiding his Miami home, his LA home?
I believe he's being targeted.
You believe he's being targeted?
Yeah. I believe, somebody, has the power to pull the trigger to make, this stuff, this domino effect happen.
Many individuals who attended his parties are now particularly worried about the potential implications of these allegations.
We're probably worried about which Diddy parties they were at and what was going on. That's not to say that they were necessarily even involved in any of the things that are alleged by the U.S. Attorney's Office. But if you're at that party and it turns out that that's when he set up one of these freak-off sex parties, or that it was going on in another room and you didn't know about it, there's a good chance that you're going to be called by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And certainly if you were involved, you would get a call, because they're going to want to know everything you want to know and may even want you to be a witness. I just think, we're just starting to scratch the surface of what this case, this case is going to touch and involve. And the feds have said that this remains an open investigation. There could be more charges for Diddy. There could be more charges for other people involved. And usually the way this works is once they find out other people are involved or were witnesses, they bring them in and they sort of lean on them, and it's sort of like, you're going to cooperate with us, or there's a possibility that you could face charges. So this is going to be a slow developing case here, because we're just getting started, and I don't see how this trial begins anytime before next year.
According to federal sources, Diddy reportedly had hidden cameras installed throughout his homes where these illicit parties took place. These cameras allegedly captured incriminating footage of high-profile attendees engaging in intimate acts, often without their knowledge.
So you know Diddy, right?
Yes.
In what way?
Back in the 90s, I was assigned to the NYPD. I was the hip-hop cop back then, so I had to assist in arresting him in several instances where there were some crimes committed.
What were those arrests for?
One was the Club New York shooting. He was with J-Lo at the time, and the other one was the Steve Stout assault that happened with MTV.
The footage was reportedly used to blackmail participants, coercing them into returning for more parties or ensuring their silence, similar to how Epstein is believed to have.
I have learned from sources that investigators have found several weapons inside his homes. Several. They also have found videos. It's been reported that Diddy has collected images of people in compromising situations at his residences. TMZ now obtained this video inside his home in Los Angeles after the raid by federal agents. It's reported that Diddy is the target of a sex trafficking investigation that comes after he was hit with a wave of civil lawsuits alleging sexual assault and trafficking. I've also learned exclusively that Diddy is in Miami. Authorities know exactly where he is. They've been in touch with his legal team. Sources tell me he's trying to avoid the paparazzi, and they're telling me he will not be arrested soon.
That is the reason many individuals who attended his parties are now particularly worried about the potential implications of these allegations.
We're probably worried about which Diddy parties they were at and what was going on. That's not to say that they were necessarily even involved in any of the things that are alleged by the U.S. Attorney's Office. But if you're at that party and it turns out that that's when he set up one of these freak-off sex parties, or that it was going on in another room and you didn't know about it, there's a good chance that you're going to be called by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And certainly if you were involved, you would get a call, because they're going to want to know everything you want to know and may even want you to be a witness. I just think, we're just starting to scratch the surface of what this case, this case is going to touch and involve. And the feds have said that this remains an open investigation. There could be more charges for Diddy. There could be more charges for other people involved. And usually the way this works is once they find out other people are involved or were witnesses, they bring them in and they sort of lean on them, and it's sort of like, you're going to cooperate with us, or there's a possibility that you could face charges. So this is going to be a slow developing case here, because we're just getting started, and I don't see how this trial begins anytime before next year.
Diddy has been accused of controlling the careers of artists under his label, allegedly using exploitative contracts and his immense influence to dictate their paths.
How you feel about that, man?
Well, I mentioned that earlier, that he said about Stevie J. The Usher part, that's a touchy situation, man. You know what I'm saying? Because I had a certain feeling, and I felt a certain way when Usher got on Shay Shay, and I don't mean to mention other people's platforms, but he got on Shay Shay and he mentioned how great and how good Puff taught him and everything. you know what I'm saying, about the business, right? I know, and people know, that was around that in that time that Puff and Usher did have a situation. And that situation led Usher to the hospital. Now I let Usher explain that to y'all. I let Usher tell that story. But how dare you say a man that groomed you, you gonna give him a pass? Bruh, you know I know.
Gene Deal's comment highlights the power dynamics and the culture of excess and control that can exist in the music industry, where people often feel they cannot say no to powerful figures. This comparison to horseplay underscores the idea that such behavior was normalized and difficult to challenge.
We didn't call it grooming back then. That his horseplay was a way of letting you know I could really hurt you if I wanted to. You get it? I could really hurt you. And that's what that kid probably felt.
However, Gene Deal suggested that Diddy was influenced by his mentors and the environment around him.
From the stuff that happened to him, the things that he had to do, you understand? The things that he had to do to become who he is. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's like this, brother. You never like something so much that you can't do without. And you never be willing to do anything to get where you want to be at. You got to have principles, you got to have morals, you got to keep with that stuff. And in that music business, a lot of that stuff get thrown out the window. You understand? And that's what happened to him. He started doing the things to other people that was done to him. To keep it frank, he was doing the things to other people that was done to him. And it is what it is. You gotta know better. And if you know better, you will do better. When he was in New York City, he was like that gecko from the Geico commercial. Then he turned and started going, when he lived in Cali and Miami, he turned into Godzilla. I would see him talk about how he using drugs. He was never like that.
What are your thoughts on this situation? Do you think Diddy can survive in such harsh conditions?